Blessed feast to you all, Aksamia, as we enjoy the Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. I'd like to welcome you all from the comfort of your homes so we can feed from the Word of God. We get this spiritual food from today. The topic which I said is 3 sisters and their mother. We have to, go into the Old Testament prophecies. They are prophesying about our time. They are them that talk about our time. So without the Old Testament, we cannot know where we are going and how things are. So we have to come from the Old Testament prophecies and know them in nitty-gritty so that we understand what God wrote that Bible for. Otherwise, some of these prophecies are just lying idle. Nobody is exhuming them to give the people what God has laid in the Bible. So today we are on the topic of 3 sisters and their mother, and which is also in Ezekiel chapter 16. We are going to study that chapter. It presents a sad view of the backsliding of God's people from the time of Abraham to the time when Christ shall come, the covenant is established on his people. So we have to go and understand the nitty-gritty of it. We have 4 different characters which are brought to view there in that chapter. We have what is called the mother, and we also have 2 daughters who are sisters. Yeah? So these sisters also have their own daughters. So we will understand what it means. So let's get on to the chapter so that you and I, we know all the prophecies. Not the prophecies, not only Daniel and Revelation. All the books of Ezekiel, books of Isaiah, the books of Micah, everywhere, they are in prophecy form. If we are not studying these and we are only ready to walk in the cloud without studying these prophecies, how then do we know we are up to the standard God is looking for? How will we guess? Some people say, I only want love. I only love, and I'll love my God and love my neighbors. That's it. That is it. But why is the Bible there? How would you know you are loving without the doctrine? You need the doctrine so that it shows whether you are displaying love. That love is there in the doctrines. It shows how you should be in front of God, how you should be towards your neighbors. So now let's go to Ezekiel chapter 16. Start studying from verse 1 up to 2. Yeah.
Ezekiel 16.
Yeah, 16.
Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man,
Right?
cause Jerusalem to know her abominations, and say, Thus saith the Lord God unto Jerusalem,
Right?
Thy birth and thy nativity is of a land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother an Hittite.
Right. So wait there. Now, in this instance, Jerusalem has been presented in not in a geographical context or in a geographical sense, but in a person called Jerusalem. Right? So this person called Jerusalem is leading God's people. So you will understand when we study and you see that this Jerusalem being mentioned, we have been told, cause Jerusalem to know her abomination. So you see, it's a person now. It's not the context of a geographical place or geographical sense. It's different. So you should, when you are studying more about Jerusalem, should know where the context is referring to a person or the context is referring to a geographical. If you do not have difference for the two, then you have a problem. So in this time, in this instance, this Jerusalem has been in a context of leadership of God's people from the time of Abraham to our time. So that's Jerusalem we are talking about. Now let's read again verse 2. Or start verse 1. Right.
Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations.
Right. So it says, cause this person, Jerusalem. So I said it is the mother or the leadership from the time of Abraham to our time. Cause these leaders to know their abomination. Right?
And say, Thus saith the Lord God unto Jerusalem,
Right?
Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan.
Right. So, but what? Let's clarify first. Because the prophet of this time, or of each of the period of the generations, had something to contend to cause their leadership to know their abomination. What was the abomination? From the time of Abraham to the time the covenant of Christ is established with his people. What was the problem? God said there were abominations. Caused Jerusalem to know her abomination. So what abomination was there from the beginning to the end? First of all, we have to establish what an abomination is. What is an abomination? Peradventure, people do not know they have abominations. But we want the Bible to tell us what exactly is an abomination. So go to Romans chapter 14, verse 23. It will tell us exactly what God is saying. This is wrong. This is wrong. What is it? Verse 23. Romans 14, verse 23.
And he that doubteth is damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith.
Is that Romans? Right, yeah.
He eateth not of faith, for whatsoever is not of faith is sin.
Right. Anything that is not of faith is sin. So check wherever you worship. If there is anything being practiced which is not of faith, it's sin. Why is it of faith? If it is not a thus saith the Lord, it's wrong. Anything in the Bible which you practice should be clearly defined in the Bible. If it is not in the Bible, that thing is an abomination in front of God. If he says, keep the Feast of Tabernacle on the 15th day, from the 15th day of the 7th month, and you keep it on any other date, anything not a thus saith the Lord is sin. This is what I'm learning. Anything not of faith is sin. Look at how many people are practicing things that are not biblical. All that is an abomination. Right? So you go and check wherever you are and ask questions and contend with Jerusalem. And ask Jerusalem or the mother, is this a thus saith the Lord that you want us to have? Where is it in the Bible? Because when it is not in the Bible, that thing is sin. That's an abomination. So this is what we are being told. Cause Jerusalem to know her abomination. This is the verse. Now, the same thing we have been told that. Go to verse 2.
Verse 2. Ezekiel 16.
Yeah, 16 verse 2.
Son of man,
Yeah.
cause Jerusalem to know her abominations,
Right?
and say, Thus saith the Lord God unto Jerusalem,
Right?
Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan.
Right. Jerusalem's nativity is the land of Canaan. But what?
Thy father was an Amorite,
Your father was an Amorite.
and thy mother an Hittite.
Your mother was a Hittite. So this is a clue where Jerusalem is coming from. Why is it? Why are those two tribes mentioned? Who are they? These two tribes are known to be the sons, the people who reigned in Canaan before Abraham went there. What were they? These were the descendants of Noah. And of Noah, of which child? Of Ham. You know Ham? Noah had 3 sons. Ham, Shem, and Japheth. So Ham, the children coming from Ham were the Hittites. And read on.
Thy father was an Amorite,
Amorites and Hittites. These are the descendants, the sons of the son of Noah called Ham. They were stationed in Jerusalem before in Canaan, before it was called Jerusalem. These were the ones who were inhabitants of the land of Canaan. And that's why God continues to talk about the Hittites, the Amorites. These were the sons of Noah. Now, these were the ones, he says, you know your nativity, Jerusalem, so well that you are a son of the Hittite Your mother was a Hittite, your father was an Amorite. You understand? But we know the proper inhabitants of Jerusalem are not coming from Ham. Canaan was inhabited by the sons of Ham, but Jerusalem was not coming from Ham. Jerusalem came from Shem. So we had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now we are seeing Abraham coming coming from the descendants of one of the sons called Shem. Then they are coming to be established in Canaan. But what was in Canaan before? The Hittites, the Amorites, the inhabitants, the sons descending from Ham. Did you understand that point? That's why God is saying, your nativity is in Canaan. And also the Hittites and the Amorites are your descendants. So what was in Canaan at that time before Jerusalem was established was the Hittites and the Amorites, right? Right. So the prophet is commanded to give the Lord's testimony in this regard from very beginning, before Abraham was called. And as we read in Ezekiel chapter 16 verse 3, let's hear 16 verse 3.
And say, thus saith the Lord God unto
So
Jerusalem.
we are to say to Jerusalem, thus saith the Lord unto Jerusalem. Now what is it?
Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan.
Right?
Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother an Hittite.
Right. So thy mother was a Hittite. Thy mother was a Hittite. Thy father was a Canaanite. So this is the nativity established. One, for the people in the land of Canaan. Two, for Jerusalem. Right? So let's read and understand more.
Verse 4. And as for thy nativity, in the day thou wast born, thy navel was not cut,
Right.
neither wast thou washed in water to supple thee.
Right.
Thou wast not salted at all,
Right.
nor
Listen to
swallowed.
that. Why God is mentioning the Hittites and the Amorites is because records from history show that they were the people who descended from Ham were the worst idolatrous people on earth. The records will show that. And they were so wicked. The Hittites, the Amorites, though coming from Ham, they were the worst idolatrous people on earth because God had destroyed the whole world and left only Noah and his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But those who came from Shem were the most idolatrous people. Now, a son of Ham, which is Abraham, came also as a descendant of Noah. So you have to know the history. So now God is saying, you know, when they dwelt in Canaan, the Hittites and the Amorites, why is he mentioning them? Because they are known by God to be the worst idolatrous people who lived a life without the fear of God. Now let's repeat again verse 3. We want to understand this chapter so that we will know about these three sisters when we are going. They will come at a later stage to understand them. But here we are being given the biography of where things started from, so that when we come to these three sisters and their mother and see what their names and whatever, it will come maybe to verse 45 there. So we have a long way to go. Do you understand? For us to finish that chapter, we finish it about, I think, verse 60 there. So it's the whole history of how the people of God have traveled, how they have sadly backslidden from God, starting from the Hittites, the Amorites, when Jerusalem is being called to go back to Canaan, to live in a country where the idolatrous people, the Hittites, the Amorites, had been inhabiting that land, who had no fear of God at all. But God is taking the son of Ham, who now comes, when he is going to live in Canaan, that's when we see Jerusalem emanating from the Canaanites. Right? So let's repeat again verse 3.
And say, Thus saith the Lord God unto
Right.
Jerusalem, Thy birth and thy nativity is the land of Canaan.
Right?
Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother an Hittite.
Right.
And as for thy nativity, in the day thou wast born, thy navel was not cut.
Right.
Neither.
So you see, verse 3 precedes from the entrance of Abraham through the Israelites now coming back from Egypt,
Okay.
going into Canaan. So that's why it's telling us exactly how the Hittites and the Amorites were. Now, these are being taken from Egypt, who are the descendants of Abraham, going to a place which was, that's why there was a need for God to assemble them in Mount Sinai. He is explaining exactly what they're supposed to be doing when they enter Canaan, in a land where the Hittites and the Amorites had inhabited Canaan. So this is how he's preparing them in the wilderness. That's why he spent 40 years in the wilderness with them, because you would see that when they entered a land where there were Hittites and Amorites, they could not stand their faith. They would be, diluted by these Hittites and Amorites. So this is why there was a wilderness sojourn, to make sure they now get what God wants them to stand as a standard. Do you understand now? So verse 3 is preceding from their entrance from Egypt. And then why are we talking about their entrance from Egypt? Do you know that Abraham had gone to Canaan before the Israelites, Joseph had been sent to Egypt? He had lived there. So when we are being told about idolatrous tribes which were there, to see what they had caused Abraham to do. Was Abraham upright? Before the children of Israel went to Egypt, was he upright? Did you see him sometimes lying? When there was famine, he went to Egypt. What did he say? This is my sister. What was all that practice coming from? That practice was coming from the people who were with him, the Hittites and the Amorites. So this is when the behavior of Abraham was affected by the people who he was living with. Do you see when he was promised a child what he did with his wife? His wife came and said, okay, I think the only thing you can do, take my maid and sleep with him. And that was a practice with the people around him. This is what happened. So Abraham was affected, his faith was affected up until he was even a liar, to go with his wife Sarah to say, this is my sister. All this was coming from the Hittites who were around. Now we proceed from the time now they went out of Egypt. God is now training them how to live upright and giving them the covenant, the first covenant, which was the statutes and judgments and commandments and testimonies for them to live. And on top of that, here to add the animal sacrifice. You understand? That's why the law of the animal sacrifice, the ordinance of the law, it's an added law. This is what Galatians will talk about this added law when he says, what saveth ye of the law? It was only added because of transgression. It's not the Ten Commandments which was added. It's not the statutes. The only law which was added is the animal sacrifice. So it was added, but the law, as it came from Mount Sinai, he was giving these people when they went out of Egypt, so that when they got that law, when they're going to live in Canaan, they will contrast their behavior with the Hittites, Amorites. And that's why they were saying, go and wipe them out, all of them, so that when they are inhabiting Canaan, they will live with the 4 laws which descended from Mount Sinai, which you have always read in Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 13. You know, it is the commandments, the statutes, the judgment, the testimonies. These are the laws to make them upright in front of God. So he says, now he's talking about Jerusalem, It says, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations. And the first thing he's introducing is that, know for sure your nativity is in Canaan. So the nativity is when Abraham was in Canaan first. The nativity who had influenced him to have a character which was more like the Hittites, of lying, of making even more wives. This was a character of the people who were around him. They know the nativity. He was not keeping the law upright there. So now he's taking the Israelites to tell them, to say, tell Jerusalem her abomination. So you should know your nativity first. And what is an abomination? The practice of things that were not biblical. Yes, of course, we have got record. He also practiced that. Abraham practiced that. If you take, for instance, today, you take another wife, second wife, this is an abomination in front of God. So he practiced that. And he also went to Egypt and he lied. He lied. So all those practices were coming from the Hittites and the Amorites who he was living with. So let's go and proceed to the next verse there. Mm-hmm.
Verse 4.
Verse 4. Up to verse 5, yeah?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And as for thy nativity,
Mm-hmm.
in the day thou wast born, thy navel was not cut,
Mm-hmm.
neither wast thou washed in water to supple thee.
Mm-hmm.
Thou wast not salted at all,
Right.
nor swaddled at all.
Mm-hmm.
None eye pitied thee,
Mm-hmm.
to do any of these unto thee,
Right.
to have compassion upon thee.
So it's describing how Abraham had lived before the Israelites went to Egypt. This is what I've just explained. It's even more, when you want to get the proof of it, go to Genesis chapter 15, verse 13, you'll find it more there, and to show that it was correct what the Bible was saying. Verse
15,
Mhm.
verse 13.
Verse 13, chapter 15, verse 13.
And he said unto Abram,
Mhm.
Know of a surety
Mhm.
that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs.
Right. And that time, the seed was going to go to Egypt to be strangers. And that was in verse 13.
And shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years.
So they were afflicted, being bricklayers for 400 years there. Right? Let's go also to Psalms chapter 105. Yeah? Verse 12 and 13. Mm-hmm.
Verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
When they were but a few men in number,
Mm-hmm.
yea, very few and strangers in it,
Right?
when they went from one nation to another, from one kingdom to another, people, he suffered no man to do them wrong. Yea, he reproved kings for their sakes.
Right. So he's grouping them. You remember what happened even before the seed of Israel went to Egypt. Remember how even Jacob, the son of Isaac, how the politics which was in his family between Esau and Jacob in the family of Isaac. How Jacob lived when he was running away from his brother who was very unfaithful. He had a brother who was called Esau, who was very unfaithful. And all that was reigning on that time. It was the time before they went into Israel. And then the thing that happened when Jacob's sons, sold Joseph. You remember? Joseph was sold to the Egyptians who were passing as a slave. And when he was sold, that practice on its own was not biblical. That practice was against God. So this was all coming from the reign with the Hittites and the Amorites. That practice was unbiblical. It was an abomination. So we are correct when we say, after now they were coming from Egypt, then God is now to tell them exactly why he is taking them to Canaan, to live upright, and gave them those 4 laws. So before that, we didn't see that. Let's go to verse 6. Verse 6. Mm-hmm.
Of Psalms.
Yeah, we are over for Ezekiel 16.
Okay, verse 6.
Mm.
And when I passed by thee, sorry, and when I passed by thee, and saw thee polluted in thine own blood,
Right?
I said unto thee, when thou wast in thy blood,
Right.
live, yea, I said unto thee, when thou wast in thy blood, live.
Right. So we see how they were so polluted. Why? This is the time when Israel was polluted. Before going to Israel, they were polluted. When they were selling Joseph, they were doing they were just in the blood. That's what the terminology is. In the blood, they had no law at all. They were polluted.
Yes.
But now we see them being reorganized after they reigned in Egypt. Did they reign in Egypt? Let's go to Exodus chapter 1, verse 8. Exodus chapter 1, verse 8
Verse 8.
to 12. We want to see how they reigned in Egypt.
Now there arose up a new king over
Right.
Egypt.
So why is that verse? That verse shows how they had multiplied themselves in Israel. They had multiplied until Pharaoh, who did not know Joseph, so that now this is a threat. These people, when they are getting so much in numbers, they can overthrow us. Now listen to that verse. Let's hear.
And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly,
Right?
and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty,
Right?
and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt,
Right?
which knew not Joseph.
Right.
And he said unto his people, Behold,
Behold.
the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
Right?
Come on, let us deal wisely with them,
Right.
lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies,
So
and
this
fight
is-
against us.
This is the condition which goes to Ezekiel chapter 16, verse 8. Read it for us. So there are many, they are multiplied, and now Pharaoh makes them taskmasters and taskmasters to afflict them. Now let's hear from verse 8.
16 verse 8.
16 verse 8, yeah?
Now, when I passed by thee, and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love.
Right?
And I spread my skirt over thee, and covered thy nakedness.
Right?
Yea, I swear unto thee, and entered into a covenant with thee,
Right.
saith the Lord God.
So when they were now being afflicted, what happened to God? He had to take them out from Egypt. This is what he says, I covered thee. Covered with my skirt. I covered thee. He had to take them out to give them a covenant. So when they walked out of Egypt, the main thing was first to go to Exodus chapter 19. And we see how they walked out of Egypt. Now they are assembled to be given the covenant. Those two verses, they go hand in hand. Verse 8 in Ezekiel 16 verse 8, and then in 19, Exodus chapter 19 verse 5 and 6. Let's hear.
Now,
Now,
therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed,
right?
and keep my covenant,
Right?
then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me
Now
above all
they've
people.
been taken out of affliction. They are now being given the covenant.
Covenant.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
This is what Ezekiel was talking about. I put my skirt over thee, and then instead I gave you my covenant. So we are going step by step with it. Let's go step by step. Ezekiel 16, going with the history of the people. You
Yeah.
understand? We are here to be studying a feast of knowing the word of the Lord, of studying, not a feast of just saying tray for nothing. We have a feast to learn what was happening, what is happening now, what is happening in future. That's what a feast is. Feast on the word of God and understand the Bible. Not to hold that Bible when it has lots of chapters that you don't even contend, you don't even understand. There should be some way we will learn all those things, right? Now let's hear. They have been given a covenant in Mount Sinai. We all know what happened there, right? So in order for God to accomplish this one, go to next verse in Ezekiel 16 is our main chapter. Our main chapter is chapter 16 of Ezekiel 16. Now we are on verse 9. Let's hear 9 up to 14, right?
Then washed I thee with water. Yea, I thoroughly washed away thy blood
Right?
from thee, and I anointed thee with oil.
Right.
I
So these people now are a peculiar nation. They are now anointed. They've been given a covenant. Now let's hear more.
I clothed thee also with broidered work,
Right?
and shod thee with badger's skin.
Right?
And I girded thee about with fine linen, and I covered thee with silk.
Right.
I decked thee also with ornaments.
Where is it now? It's a history. Now, after they are out of the wilderness, they are in Israel, and it's now going to go through even how wonderful a nation it was under the kings, the marvelous kings of David, of Solomon. This is what he's saying. He's taking it now, a peculiar treasure, taking it with silver and gold. And no other reign was so glorious like the reign of David and Solomon. So he's taking it. You know, we are seeing this child, this history of this woman this woman Jerusalem going. Now it is decked with silver and gold, very rich. Let's hear. We are in the throne of David and Solomon now.
I decked thee also with ornaments, and I put bracelets upon thy hands,
Right?
and a chain on thy neck. And I put a jewel on thy forehead, and earrings in thine ears,
Do you see?
and a beautiful crown upon thine head.
We are in the time of Solomon. A beautiful crown upon their head. But did they stop? Did Jerusalem stop being unfaithful to God? We saw how they became unfaithful. King Solomon, the worst idolatrous king ever. Even after God had done all that. How many wives did he have? How many concubines did he have? He continued with the practice of the Hittites and the Amorites. Did you see that? The only thing that is a bother to God is these descendants of Shem who are still here until today. We want to see this practice of breaking God's law, which came from the Hittites and the Amorites. Is it not there still with us? Or was it there even in the time of Christ coming? Is it still not there? But we want to see how God will separate his children from the Hittites and the Amorites. Right? Let's hear more. We've gone up to verse 14.
Verse 13 now.
Verse 13, right?
Thus was thou decked with gold and
Right.
silver, and the raiment was of fine linen and silk, and broidered work. Thou didst eat fine flour and honey and
Right.
oil,
Right.
and thou wast exceeding beautiful.
You were exceeding beautiful. That's the reign of Solomon. Exceeding beautiful.
And thou didst prosper into a kingdom.
And then you had a prosperous kingdom. The reign of David, the reign of Solomon was a prosperous kingdom. That's why even he is talking about David in our time. Because this is the movement of his church from Abraham. And now we are on Solomon's time. Still, the practice of the Hittites and the Amorites. We will see how many wives. How many wives? They were so corrupt. Even when God was decking them with silver, all the ornaments, everything. But the practice of the Hittites, we saw them with Abraham before they went to Israel. We saw them even when they sold Joseph. We saw them now even when they came up, they've been given a covenant in Mount Sinai. Still, in the time of Solomon, in the time of David, still the practice of the Amorites and the Hittites is still there. You understand? Now we are going with Jerusalem. Cause Jerusalem to know her abomination. This is in Ezekiel chapter 16. It's a prophet on its own. Right. Let's hear more. Have you gone to verse 16?
No, we're on verse 14 now.
Verse 14. Go to 15 and 16. Yeah.
And thy renown went forth among the heathen,
Right?
for thy beauty. For it was perfect through my comeliness,
Right.
which I had put upon thee,
Right. The
saith the Lord.
beauty of their kingdom was
perfect.
perfect. Even the Gentiles, even the heathen, they marveled Solomon, they marveled David's kingdom. It was beautiful. Listen.
But thou didst trust in thine own beauty,
Right.
and playest the harlot
You
because of thy
also
renown,
still were playing a harlot.
and pouredst out the fornications on everyone that passed by.
Everyone who passed by Solomon, you were pouring out your fornication. Cause Jerusalem to know her abomination.
And of thy garments
Right.
thou didst take,
Right.
and deckest thy high places with with diverse colors,
Right?
and playeth the harlot thereupon.
Right.
The like things shall not come,
Right.
neither shall it be so.
So you see, throughout the history, this abomination, breaking of the covenant, continued. People breaking. Which one is the covenant of God which was given in Mount Sinai? We have been saying about it. What was in Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 13? This covenant was being messed up everywhere. Now go to Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 13. Yeah.
Thou camest down
Right?
also upon Mount Sinai,
Yeah.
and spakest with them from heaven,
Right?
and gavest them right judgments,
Right judgment.
and true laws,
true laws.
good statutes,
Good statutes.
and commandments.
They did not have these laws when they were in Egypt. They were established on Mount Sinai when they came out. But this was the first covenant he's making with his people. Why was he making this covenant? Go to Deuteronomy chapter 6. Why did God give this covenant? Don't talk about the animals. That was an added law. The animal was an added law, but this covenant is in these 4 laws. Let's hear. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 1.
Verse 1.
Uh-huh.
Now,
Now,
these are the commandments,
The commandments,
the statutes,
the statutes,
and the judgments,
and the judgments.
which the Lord your God
So,
commanded
you
to
see,
teach you,
he commanded them on Mount Horeb or Sinai, right?
which the Lord your God commanded to teach you,
Right?
whither ye go to possess it in
Right.
the land,
Uh-huh.
that thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments,
Right?
which I command thee, thou and thy son,
Right.
and thy son's son, all the days of thy life.
All the days of their life. These were not to be nailed to the cross. These were to be kept all the days of the life. Right? That's why we have Sister White telling us that these precepts were not shadowy types to pass away with the cross. These were binding as long as life should last. So these were to keep them. Why? Why did he give them those? Go to verse 24. On Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 24. Why did he give them that? Why did he establish them out of Egypt and gave those laws? Why? Because he was going to go and face all these Hittites and the Amorites with all their laws, their practices, which were not up to the standard. But God makes sure his own peculiar people, he will give those laws to be peculiar. Now let's hear.
And the Lord commanded us to do all these things, all
Right.
these statutes,
Right?
to fear the Lord our
It
God,
was the one that these laws were going to make them fear God.
for our good always.
These laws were going to make them practice and then be blessed.
That
That's
he-
why it is in present tense. For our good always.
That he might preserve us alive,
Right?
as it is at this day.
These laws were the ones to preserve them from all these things that threaten our lives. These are the laws. And what? Verse 25.
And it shall be our righteousness,
These laws are the righteousness. These are the seal of God.
if we observe to do all these commandments
So
before the Lord.
God taught them this covenant to make them righteous, to make them fear God, to make them protected, to make them blessed. This was their covenant. But we see from the time they walked out of Egypt and they stayed in Canaan, they were even sent for 70 years in Babylon when they stopped keeping the covenant. This covenant was being torn down step by step until we are today it's being torn down. That's why in this day, he is sending, what is he sending? Let's go to Malachi chapter 4, verse 4 to 5. Why would he pick on those laws? Right, listen. Verse 4.
Verse 4. Remember ye the law of Moses,
Right.
my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb
Right.
for all Israel,
Which one?
with the statutes
The statutes
and judgments.
and judgment. Why? Because we now concentrated on the moral law and left the statutes. The feasts are so much despised and rejected in all ages. So God is saying, I will send somebody with the statutes, which are the feasts, and the judgments. These are going to be sent before God will pass judgment to people. Now here, let's go back to the history. Let's see how they were so terribly offended. on these laws of the covenant. The covenant was torn down. We can see how it was torn down to Solomon and David, how they wanted idolatrous wives. They tore down the covenant like anything. Now let's hear where you were reading, where in verse 15. Did you go to verse 16? Right?
Yeah, verse 16 we read.
Right. So you see, throughout history, let's go to 17. I want you to read from 17 up to 34. Because it's a long chapter up to verse 60. So I want to get all the gist of it. Now let's hear.
Thou hast also taken thy fair jewels of my gold and of my silver,
Right?
which I had given thee, and madest to thyself images of men, didst commit whoredom with them, and tookest thou broided garments and coverest them,
Right.
and thou hast set mine oil and mine incense before them.
Right?
My meat also, which I gave thee, fine flour and oil and honey,
So you see how he was blessing his people, right?
fine flour and oil and honey,
Right.
wherewith I fed thee.
Right.
Thou hast even set it before them for a sweet savour.
Right?
And thus it was, saith the Lord God. Moreover, thou hast taken
So
thy
it's
sons.
all filled with complaints from God. Complaints, I did this to you. I did this. All that he could have done to your people. But still, the covenant was being broken. Let's go to verse 34.
Verse 34. Want me to read verse 34?
Verse 34.
And the contrary is in thee from other women, in thy whoredoms, whereas none followeth thee to commit whoredoms.
Right.
And in that thou givest a reward, and no reward is given unto thee. Therefore, thou art contrary.
So that's what he describes. The breaking of the covenant is what he's saying, whoredom. So what is the abomination that we have to tell Jerusalem about? About the whoredom. Which whoredom? Of not following God's covenant. That's why he's talking about whoredom. You are adulterating if you are not keeping the covenant. That's what he's saying. We saw it when we were studying Hosea. That, plead with your mother. Plead. And it was the children pleading with the mother to say, stop the whoredom. Stop the whoredom. Now here we are saying, let's hear from verse 35. Verse 35. Have you read verse 35?
Not yet.
Go to 35, yeah?
Wherefore, O harlot,
Oh,
hear
harlot.
the
Now
word
he's
of the Lord.
addressing with a proper name. Oh, harlot. Tell Jerusalem here abomination. We have identified the abomination was of breaking the covenant. Now he's saying, therefore, oh, harlot.
Hear the word of the Lord.
Hear the word of the Lord.
Thus saith the Lord God.
Listen to what God says.
Because thy because thy filthiness was poured out,
Right.
and thy nakedness discovered through the whoredoms with thy lovers, and with all the idols of thy abominations, and by the blood of thy children,
Right.
which thou didst give unto them.
Right?
Behold,
Behold.
therefore, I will gather all thy lovers, with whom thou hast taken pleasure,
Right.
and all them that thou hast loved,
Right.
with all them that thou hast hated.
Right.
I will even gather them around about against thee,
Right?
and will discover thy nakedness unto them,
Go to verse
that they
42.
may see all thy nakedness.
Right? 42.
So will I make my fury toward thee to rest,
So this is how I will make my fury towards you and I will rest.
and my jealousy shall depart from thee,
Right.
and I will be quiet, and will be no more angry.
Right. So he's going to do something to make sure his children are upright. He says when he does that, he will be quiet and you won't be angry anymore. So why would he not be angry anymore? It's because the children will now be upright with the covenant. So you see, it has superseded our time and it's even future. There is a time where God is saying, I will fold my hands, I will be quiet, and I won't be angry anymore. So he has finished the whole history until at the last where you will no longer be angry because Jerusalem will be upright. Did you understand now? Let's go to verse 44.
44. Behold,
Right?
everyone that useth proverbs shall use this proverb against thee.
And everyone that use Proverbs will use Proverbs against you, mother.
saying,
Saying,
as is the mother, so is her daughter.
so then it means this mother will have a daughter. So when we are talking about daughter, you know, in the Bible, there is no such things like grandchild, grandson, or granddaughter. There's nothing grand. It's either you are the father or you are the child. There is no grand. The grand is not biblical. So when he's talking about the father, it is the previous Israel, ancient. When he's talking about the son or the daughter, he is talking about the last descendants of Israel. Did you understand that? So those who are calling themselves spiritual Israel are the ones that he says, so it will be said, like mother
like daughter.
and like daughter. So it means there is two Jerusalems now. Ancient Jerusalem and spiritual Jerusalem. Did you understand now where we are? We are where it is the daughter to Jerusalem, still called Jerusalem, but now the daughter. It is the modern Jerusalem. We have ancient Jerusalem and modern Jerusalem, who is our mother right now, right? But let's hear more. We are now talking of the offspring. Go to verse 45 this year. So we know in our time we still have a mother who is a daughter to the previous Jerusalem. So let's hear about our mother Jerusalem right now. It's in verse 45. Let's hear now.
Thou art thy mother's daughter.
Right. So this one, this girl in our time, has a mother. So it's called, thou art thy mother's daughter. So it's a daughter to Jerusalem the ancient. Right? Listen.
Thou art thy mother's daughter.
Right?
That loatheth her husband and her children, and thou art thy sister of thy sisters.
Did you hear?
Which loatheth.
This Jerusalem, which is modern, has sisters. But you saw the mother. We didn't hear nothing about her sisters. But this one, the Jerusalem of our modern time, has sisters. That's where our lesson is. That's why the topic says, the mother, the three sisters and their mother. So we have seen the mother is the ancient Jerusalem. But we have modern Jerusalem in our time. That's why I say it's not a geographical place. We are talking of leadership in our time. There was leadership in the previous time. Now it's leadership in our time of the people of God in our time, called Jerusalem, a daughter to the ancient Jerusalem. But it's got sisters. Verse 45. Read again. Let's hear.
Thou art thou art thy mother's daughter, that loatheth her husband and her children, and thou art thy sisters of thy sister, which loathed her husbands and their children. Your mother was an Hittite, and your father an Amorite.
So this new modern Jerusalem, your mother was a Hittite. And what? Your mother. The verse said.
Oh, okay. Your mother was an Hittite,
right,
and your father an Amorite.
Still has got that problem. The mother of this Jerusalem was a Hittite. The father, an Amorite, still has got the same problems which were there in ancient mother. As this is our mother right now, also a descendant of the Hittites and the Amorites. Now this mother has got daughters or sisters. But these are a family relationship. It's a family relationship. But a dysfunctional family. Why? Listen to why it is dysfunctional. It's because, read verse 45, let's hear.
Thou art thy mother's daughter, that loathed her husband and her children.
Right.
And thou art thy sister of thy sisters.
Right.
Which loathed her husband and their children.
So why is it dysfunctional? It is the sisters, they loathe their husband and children. Did you hear that? So dysfunctional. It's a problem. That's where we are today. That's where the lesson is. We understand. Let's go to verse 46 and understand the full note of the lesson. Read on.
Your mother was an Hittite,
Right.
and your father an Amorite,
Right?
and thine elder sister is Samaria.
Now we want to find out who are these sisters, because we know this is new. The Jerusalem is a modern Jerusalem. It's not an ancient one, because it's the spiritual one, right? But it's got sisters. The first sister, the older than Jerusalem, is called Samaria. That's where we are now. The sister is called Samaria. What about the other sister? What is the name? Listen, verse 46.
And thine elder sister is Samaria,
Right?
she and her daughters that dwell at thy left hand, and thy younger sister that dwelleth at thy right hand is Sodom and her daughters.
So you see, it's got two sisters. Jerusalem modern, it's got one older sister called Samaria. This smallest sister called Sodom.
Yeah.
What names? Did you hear that? But these are similitudes in character. That's why they are named by those names. Samaria. We used to have that old Samaria, and we have that old Sodom and old Jerusalem. But here we are talking about them being people or being leaderships. Do you understand? But this leadership has got a sister called Samaria, and another sister younger than Jerusalem called Sodom. That's where we are. Today when we finish, we want to know who is Jerusalem and who is Samaria and who is Sodom. If we don't finish, we'll finish again next time when we meet. We have to finish. We don't do things hurrying. We have to finish the whole Bible, checking them chapter by chapter until the whole Bible is clear for us. We are ready for translation. We cannot be ready for translation when we have all these other chapters lying idle. You think God just wants a person without any knowledge? We are sealed with a seal of knowledge. This is truth, which is imparted into our brain so that we know what is truth. Do you understand? Now here, we have got a new type of Jerusalem, which has two sisters. And the first sister called Samaria. And the second sister is called Sodom. Yeah? Right. So Sodom is being called the younger one. And we know Sodom, who was Sodom? Who was in Sodom? Lot. What was Lot? Was he an Israelite? Was a Gentile?
Yeah.
Did you hear? Sodom was a Gentile. Samaria. Where did you find Samaria? Samaria is where the 10 tribes had their capital city. That's where they were residing. That's where they were worshiping inside. That was their place, the 10 tribes of Israel. But Sodom is, we remember Lot was in Sodom, and Lot was not even part of the Israelites. He was just a nephew to Abraham, but the Israelites came through the lineage of Abraham. You understand? So he was not an Israelite, he was a Gentile. Right? We know for sure there. And let's hear more. What verse are you?
Verse 47.
Right. But let me take you back, while you are on verse 7, let me take you back to the chapter that we enjoyed the other day of Hosea, so that you can see the similitude of what God is talking to us through Ezekiel is still there in Hosea. Now let's go to Hosea chapter 1 verse 4. Let's hear what happened there.
Verse 4. And the Lord said unto him, call his name Jezreel.
So the firstborn of Gomer, of Hosea, who married a prostitute called Gomer, the firstborn was called Jezreel. And what was the interpretation of Jezreel? It was like God saw.
Yeah.
God saws. So let's go to verse 6. Let's hear the secondborn.
And she conceived again, and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, call her name Loruhamah.
So Loruhamah was called no mercy, and also figurative of 10 tribes of Israel. That's Loruhamah. We saw where they were called Loruhamah, where they went away from God.
Yeah.
They were called Loruhamah, right? So let's hear verse 7, the other one.
But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah,
Right?
and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. Now,
Verse
when
9.
she... Okay.
Uh-huh.
Then said God, call his name Lo-Ami.
But did you hear on verse 7? He said he will have mercy on the house of Judah. Did you hear that? It was the house of Judah, and when there are two tribes under Judah. Do you understand? When there was a division of the 12 tribes in the time of Solomon, the 2 tribes were called the tribes of Judah, and the 10 tribes were called the tribe of Israel. But God is saying on verse 7, I will have mercy unto the tribe of Judah. This is why we find the tribe of Judah is still there in the Holy Land. Why? Because God had mercy, and they are the ones who stayed. But the 10 tribes were dispersed throughout all the lands. And they had no mercy, like what he said, no mercy, which is Lord Ruhama, dispersed. But this one, God specified, even it was Lo-Ami, says, but the tribe of Judah, they will stay in the land. I will have mercy. The mercy was to make them stay. When Christ came the first time, he found the 2 tribes were there. The 10 tribes are still out until today. And some of them have even lost their genealogy. But we find them in the sealing process, where we see 12 tribes of Israel found first in the judgment, which begins first in the house of God. So these should be Israel by lineage and also by spirit. It's both. It's no point being a Sabbath keeper, but you should be both. You understand? You can keep the Sabbath when you are not even part of the lineage. But it should be the 12 tribes of Israel, as in Revelation chapter 7, it says, I saw them, 12,000 from each son of Jacob. 12,000, 12,000. So don't add what you want on top of that verse. Don't add. Says you have a problem if you add what God has written and add and say it means. No, take it as it is, 12 tribes from each son of Jacob. But now we find the 2 tribes. God says, clearly says in Hosea 1 verse 7, I will have mercy to the tribes of Judah. And the mercy was in leaving them in the Holy Land. But the other 10 tribes, he had dispersed them all over the Gentile countries. So this is what we saw. So now we will know what it is to be Samaria. What is Samaria? Samaria is in reference to the 10 tribes who were dispersed all over. They are under the name Samaria. They are sisters to Jerusalem. Yes, of course. Jerusalem, what is Jerusalem? Jerusalem now is the 2 tribes. So these 2 sisters we have identified, but we're still going to identify who Sodom is. The 2 tribes, the Samaria is the 10 tribes. That's where their headquarters was before they were dispersed. They were in Samaria. They had chosen to be in Samaria. And also Jerusalem was in Jerusalem, which is the modern mother of us, who is a descendant of that ancient Jerusalem, which we saw that God was saying, cause Jerusalem to know her abomination. Right through from Abraham, we saw how they were distorting the covenant. But now we have a modern Jerusalem. The tricky bit is that it's got two sisters, Samaria and Sodom. And we have seen who Samaria is. Samaria are the 10 tribes. So that's Samaria. But we will study more to see it more and have a clear message to say we cannot suppose. We have to hold it like this. You understand? Now, let's hear, go to Hosea chapter 1, verse 10 there.
Verse 10.
Uh-huh.
Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea,
Right.
which cannot
So
be measured.
what is God talking about? When he has cut the 10 tribes and dispersed everywhere, and also left 2 tribes in the Holy Land. But he says, yet the number of the children of Israel will be like a sand of the sea, as he showed to Abraham. So what is it he's talking about? So it means there is something he's going to do so that at last, what he said in verse 46, that I will fold my hands and my anger will come to naught. There will be a holy people at last, but the number of them will be like the sand of the sea, right? And how is the number to increase? So how is it going to increase? Go to Hosea chapter 2 verse 1. How is this number going to be like a sand of the sea? Hosea chapter 2 verse 1.
Verse 1. Say ye unto your brethren, Ami, and to your sisters, Ruhama.
Do you see in that verse there is no law? I taught you the other day that the law is a no. So the sister now is called Ruhama without law. And the brother is called Ami without law. So it means they are now upright. So if the law was saying no mercy, and the law on Ami was saying not my people, so it means when the law has been taken off, they are God's people and they have mercy. Do you understand? Say heed to that law. Now read on. Have you finished?
Verse 2?
Yeah, verse 1. Have you finished it?
Verse 1.
Right, so we see now at last there's a time where the sister is and the brother are now God's people with mercy. But we see if in Romans chapter 11 verse 28, let's see, Paul also talked about it when they are now low. Or start from chapter 11 verse 5. Let's hear more from verse 5 to 6.
Even so, then at this present time, also there is a remnant according to the election of grace.
Right?
And if by grace, then it is no more of works.
Right?
Otherwise, grace is no more grace.
Right?
But if it be of works,
Right?
then is it no more grace.
Right.
Otherwise, work is no more work.
So God is saying Paul is saying there is a remnant of grace. So it means it's true. God had to give grace to Ami and Ruhama. Now they are not low Ami, they are not low Ruhama. So there is a time when they will be now God's people. And go to verse 28. Let's hear what happened there.
Verse 28. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes.
Right?
But as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sake.
Right?
For the gifts and calling of God are without repentance.
Right.
For as ye
Finish that sentence.
For as ye in times past have not believed God,
Right.
yet have now obtained mercy through their unbelief.
So how do they get now this Ami and Ruhama without the law? It's because now they will be sealed as 1 for 4,000. They will have the grace when they respond and preserve the covenant, which we have seen in Prophets and Kings, page 713, that all the covenants which were given to ancient Israel will finally be established with the people of God. That's where they are Ami and Ruhama. But they were told, plead with your mother. Your mother refused to join Ami and Ruhama. Plead with her. She has played the harlot. Right? But here, let's hear more. We are not on Hosea for today. We're just taking those verses so that we understand where we are. So after in the New Testament, we developed another daughter of Jerusalem. The daughter but had 2 sisters. That's why the topic was the 3 sisters and their mother. The 3 sisters, their mother was ancient Jerusalem. But now we have modern Jerusalem, which has 2 sisters, Samaria and Sodom. We haven't spoken much about Sodom, right? Let's hear more in Isaiah chapter 62, verse 1 and 6. Or maybe if before you set yourself on that, let's see how then it went after the spiritual or the Christians started from the early Christian church when they were invaded, and finally we have our 144,000. Can you go to Jude 1 verse 4? Want to see exactly what is happening there.
Verse 4.
Verse 4, yeah.
For there are certain men crept in unawares,
Right?
who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men,
Right?
turning the grace of our God into lasciviousness.
Right. So Jude was talking about the invasion of the early Christian church. That there are people who are ungodly, who he said were going to turn the grace of God. So he was introducing this Christian church, which is a mother now called modern Israel or modern Jerusalem, which is the daughter of the ancient Jerusalem, with two sisters, Samaria and Sodom. Now he's saying, when the early Christian church starts, we will go through where there are people who are wicked, who will turn this grace again. Do you understand? Into lasciviousness. That's Jude. But let's see what happens in 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 3. Let's hear what Paul himself says about this invasion.
2 Thessalonians 2 verse 3.
2 Thessalonians 2 verse 3, yeah.
Let no man deceive you
Let
by
no
any
man
means.
deceive you.
By any means.
By any means.
For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first.
Wait. So it means in his time, Paul, people were now waiting for the coming of Christ. And Paul was telling them, hey, let no man deceive you. That day of coming of Christ should come. It will only come after this man of sin has invaded the church. Like it is in these days. You see people say, we are ready to hop in the cloud. But you ask them, that cloud will not come until we have started the kingdom. Or until the loud cry is finished. If you believe that the loud cry is going to be there where there will be a 666, then why are you talking about the hopping in the cloud right now when the 666 has not been, the time of trouble such as never was, has not yet, and you're talking about. Now Paul was facing such mentality again, who was saying, the time of the coming of Christ is, they said, let no one fool you. Listen to that verse. Read it again.
Let no man deceive you by any means.
Right?
For that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first.
Right.
And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
Right?
Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called of God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, shewing himself.
Understand that verse properly. We know the church was invaded by paganism in the early Christian church. But Paul is talking about a falling away. So who fell?
Right.
Who fell? Paganism did not fall. Paganism invaded. But who fell? The mother. Jerusalem, the mother, did fall. Yeah? By paganism, the falling away was not done by paganism. The falling away was done by Jerusalem. The ancient Jerusalem fell. When the men of sin invaded the church, why? If they kept their eyes up to God and doing all the statutes, the covenant and promises, everything, there was no evasion by paganism. Why is paganism coming in? It's because the mother failed, lost the covenant promise. That's why the falling away came. Because paganism didn't fall. Paganism triumphed. But who fell? Why is Paul talking about a falling away? Why? It's because they did not keep pace with the light, and therefore these are the times which Christ was talking about, where the seed was sown and then tares came up. While men slept, the tares came. So there was a falling away of ancient mother on that time. That's why Paul is talking about a falling away. He's not talking about paganism only. He's talking about the mother. Jerusalem, the mother, fell. When all the disciples died, who were leading the early Christian church, those who took their place fell. There was a falling away. That's why they were invaded by paganism. The men of sin came in because they were sleeping while men slept. The man of sin came and put his own fists. And now until today we see, if you see this feast coming into play in our time, it's because the Jerusalem of this time, the mother or the leader of this time is asleep. And for sure, you have even Jerusalem of this time uttering these pagan names as well. Blessed feast, blessed Christmas, blessed. But here on the Feast of Tabernacle, he is sleeping. This is what Paul is talking about in First Thessalonians chapter 5. He says, them that sleep, they sleep. Let's go to it. First Thessalonians. Sleeping is allowing paganism to come in while you are sleeping. Because when you are awake, you won't allow that. You won't allow, hey, there we are. We are on the Feast of Tabernacle. We didn't allow that. We don't allow paganism. And listen to First Thessalonians chapter 5. Let's read from verse 1. This is what is called sleeping. Christ said, while they slept, the enemy sowed the tears. The tears were sown. When people are sleeping, that's when you hear the men of sin will evade because they fell. Right, listen to that. First Thessalonians, chapter 5. Verse 1.
But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night.
Right, in our time now, Paul is not talking about, oh no, let no one deceive you, for there is a falling away first. Now, in our time, he says, for the times and seasons. Which are these times and seasons? The feast. Because in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 4, it says, these are the feasts. These are the times which you should keep in their seasons. So the time and seasons are the feasts. So he says, you don't need that I should write about the Feast of Tabernacle. I can't write about the feast and the Passover and the new moon. I can't write. You yourself know. Listen to that. For the times and seasons.
For the times and the seasons.
Right?
Brethren,
right?
ye have no need that I write unto you.
There's no need that I should write for you.
For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night.
Now he's talking about the day of our Lord coming as a thief in the night. Not a falling away first. But there is no more falling away. We have to come up where we were falling. And we have to come up and keep the times and the seasons. Now listen to that.
For when they shall say peace and safety.
There are the modern Jerusalem of the time. If you hear now, I doubt very much if that person is that leadership is modern Jerusalem. It's doubtful. Why? Because the Jerusalem of this time will emerge as the 144,000. That's the leadership of this time will emerge as 144,000. Why? Because it's keeping the times and seasons. So if it's not keeping the times and seasons, then I question and say, is it either is Samaria or is it either is Sodom? So we will know where whoever belongs in these three sisters. Right? Let's hear. For the times, if you hear, listen to that.
For when they shall say peace and safety.
When Samaria says peace and safety.
Then sudden destruction cometh.
Why should I say Samaria? I will tell you why I say Samaria. I'll tell you. Listen to that.
Then sudden destruction cometh upon them.
Why should I say Samaria is sleeping? Because those who are awake are keeping the times and seasons. But when they are sleeping, they are Samaria. And Samaria is asleep. And there is just saying peace and safety and sleeping. Listen to that. What Paul's saying is right.
As travail upon a woman with child.
As travail upon a human. Now we saw in Zechariah chapter 6, there are two leaderships. Grizzled
and bay.
Horses and bay. So we want to see this grizzled. If he's asleep, what is called sleeping is not to keep the times and seasons. Now let's hear more.
But ye brethren, are not in darkness.
You bay horses are not in darkness.
That day should overtake you as a thief.
Great Controversy 399 says the date even of coming of Christ, the second coming of Christ, is in the symbolic service. So you are not asleep. Right?
Ye are all the children of the light.
You are in day. You are not at night.
And the children of the day.
You are of the day.
We are not of the night nor of the darkness.
So when you are keeping the times and seasons, you are not of the night, you are of the day. But Samaria is sleeping. I'll tell you why I call Samaria. Because we have to know why it's called Samaria. Right? So now we have identified two sisters so far. The first sister, the two tribe, which is Jerusalem, which was given mercy, and it was tribe of Judah. And this is in Jerusalem. It's called Jerusalem. The 10 tribe which is Samaria. So why should I say 10 tribes in Samaria? Right? One, you will find that the 10 tribes, they set up an own mode of worship. Samaria, where the 10 tribes were living, they had set their own mode of worship, which was different from where Judah was worshiping. These are the people we read in 1 Kings. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 29. The leaders of the 10 tribes, they set up their own altars there. Let's read in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 29. Read on.
And he set the one in Bethel, and the other put he in Dan.
Go to the previous one, verse 26 to 28.
And Jeroboam,
Right. That's the leader of Samaria.
and Jeroboam said in his heart, Now shall the kingdom return to the house of David.
Right?
If this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto their Lord, even unto Rehoboam king of Judah. And they shall kill me and go again to Rehoboam king of Judah.
So Jeroboam said, let's avoid going to worship in the altar in Jerusalem. Did you see Jeroboam deliberately avoided going to Jerusalem? Why? Listen to that. Right?
Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold and said unto them,
Right?
It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem.
That's too much. You people, to those 10, the 10 tribes were being led by Jeroboam. Says, 10 tribes, don't go where the 2 tribes of Judah are going to Jerusalem. It's too far. Let's worship outside Jerusalem, here. But listen to what he did. He also chose the 8th month instead of the 7th month. Listen to that.
It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem.
It's too much for you to be going worshiping. Have you seen the 10 tribes doing Samaria? Samaria is saying, you waste so much money going 3 times a year to worship in Jerusalem. We will worship outside Jerusalem. Let's worship where we are. Do you understand? That's Samaria. That is Samaria. When you see them against the keeping of the feast, as in Deuteronomy 16, verse 16, where God says, 3 times a year, you shall keep the feast of the Passover, the feast of Pentecost, the feast of Tabernacle in Jerusalem. But what is Jeroboam saying? Jeroboam says, 10 tribes, let's not go there. Let's keep wherever we are, wherever. This is what happened. Now let's hear more.
It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem.
Right?
Behold, thy
Have
God...
you heard them saying, how much ticket is that? That's too much. That's too much. It's too much money. How many times a year? Oh, that's too much. That's what Samaria does. This comes from his character to resemble the Hittites and the Amorites, who were not worshipping according to the design of God. Listen to that.
It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem.
It's too much for you to go to keep the feast in Jerusalem.
Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
Right?
And he set the one in Bethel, and the other put he in Dan.
So where did he set his altar? In Bethel. It's not in Jerusalem. And where?
And in Dan.
And in Dan. Have you seen these Bethels and Dans? Did you hear ask your neighbors, did you keep the camp meeting? They say yes. When? Wrong date. And when? Wrong place. And they don't all go to that place. Some go to different names. Wherever. Wamsila Hove, Kwani. They have these, separate venues. This is what Jeroboam did when he was leading Samaria. 10 tribes of Israel under Samaria. They were called Samaria. They were under the name Samaria. And God has said in Ezekiel chapter 16, it says, this daughter of Jerusalem has got 2 sisters. The first sister is Samaria. And the other one is Sodom. And here's Jerusalem. But now Jerusalem, we know, was sticking to the worship of God in Jerusalem. That was the 2 tribes of Judah. They were sticking, that's where they were going continuously, while Samaria under Jeroboam were saying, let's not go to Jerusalem. Let's not go. Let's stay anyway where we are, even on wrong dates. Don't worry, on the 8th month, wrong date like Jeroboam, and the wrong places and wrong venues. This one, Samaria, was bigger than Jerusalem in age. Because the 10 tribes, if you see physically, there are 10 tribes of Israel. They are more than the 2 tribes. Did you see that? So Samaria thinks because we have so many people around us who are not even keeping the feast, we are okay. There are as many as there were. The 10 tribes were many more than the 2 tribes. But Judah was keeping the feast continually where God designed the feast to be kept. Now let's hear more. Where are you? Have you gone up to verse 28?
Yeah, verse 30 now.
Yeah, on verse 30. So you see, this clearly defines the 10 tribes under Samaria to be that system. So we have 3 leaderships we are talking about. When we are saying sisters, we have 3 leaderships we are talking about. The first leader is Samaria. The second leader is Jerusalem. The third is Sodom. But all 3 are sisters. But we will see one of the 3 sisters is the one where God will establish his covenant and says, I will fold my hands and my anger will be satisfied. In one of the sisters, they are all of the same mother, same family, and all come to worship the same, but the covenant will be established under Jerusalem. Because it's Jerusalem who actually proceeded to be the 144,000. But among us, the same house of God, we have 3 sisters. One sister will take up the covenant. The other sister, Samaria, refused to keep the feast where it was designed by God to keep the Feast of Tabernacle and the Feast of Passover. And refused also to make the dates according to what God designed under Jeroboam. But here, let's see. We have identified who Samaria is. But we want now to know, go to Exodus chapter 29. Did God command that we should do? Because Samaria abandoned the sanctuary of God. By him not avoiding to go to Jerusalem, he was abandoning the sanctuary which had been established by God in Jerusalem. Right? This sanctuary was given for a purpose. Let's see it being given in Exodus chapter 29, verse 42 to 45. Read on him.
Verse 42.
Yeah, 42.
This shall be a continual burnt offering throughout your generations.
So it was in Jerusalem. Let's hear.
At the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, before the Lord, where I will meet you to speak there unto thee. And there I will meet with the children of Israel, and the tabernacle shall be sanctified.
So where did he design that sanctuary to be? Where is God going to meet the people? At the door of the sanctuary. So the door was in Jerusalem. So Samaria, or the 10 tribes, deliberately avoided to meet the voice of God at the door of the sanctuary in Jerusalem. So why is Samaria avoiding to go to the door in Jerusalem? Is because he is evading the voice of God, which was promised to meet the leaders at the door of the sanctuary. Read on this here.
And there
up to 45. Yeah.
And I will sanctify the tabernacle of the congregation.
So even the congregation, which it's not only the leaders who are going to be sanctified at the door of the sanctuary in Jerusalem. Even the congregation was going to be also sanctified while they were keeping the sanctuary in Jerusalem. But he established his own sanctuary in Bethel and in Dan so that the people avoid making contact with the voice of God, and also with the presence of God to be sanctified. This is what he avoided. Now let's hear more, up to 45.
And I will dwell, and I will sanctify the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar. I will sanctify also both Aaron and his sons to minister to me in the priest's office.
Right?
And I will dwell among the children of Israel.
Right.
And will be their God.
Right. So you see, he had promised that at the door, he will dwell among them. When they come for the sanctuary, to worship at the sanctuary, he will be their God. He will dwell among the children of Israel. He will be their God. He will meet them then, sanctify them. But listen, under Jeroboam, Jeroboam took the whole congregation of 10 tribes somewhere else, avoided keeping the feasts and even the daily at the door of the sanctuary. He avoided all those things. He's got no daily, so now we know how to identify Samaria. He has no day. He has no daily. He's got no feasts. He deliberately tries to attempt even the Feast of Tabernacle, but in Dan and Bethel. And also on the wrong date, which is on the 8th day, 8th month, and on the 15th day, but on the 8th month, according to how he wants. He took the congregation out of the radar, which God said, I will meet it there. 3 times a year. That is a law for those people who are called the people of God, to meet God at the 3rd hour, to meet God on the feast. Come and meet Christ on the feast. This is what God designed. But Samaria doesn't want to do that. Now, if we have the courtesy to call the present leadership Jerusalem, that's giving them a wrong name. But they are supposed to go under Samaria, whose Samaria has nothing to do with the feasts, and nothing to do with the dates, and nothing to do with the daily. That's Samaria. Today, we are going to be able to identify Samaria. But we know what? The next time we meet, we want to tackle even Sodom. That's where we want. So now we know who Jerusalem is, the 2 tribes who are keeping the feast in Jerusalem and keeping the day according to how God said he promised to meet the leaders in Jerusalem at the door of the sanctuary, and also sanctify the leaders and also sanctify the congregation. And Jeroboam, under the name Samaria, does not want that order which has been said by God. We will tackle this one. We haven't even started the lesson, to be honest with you. The lesson hasn't started. We are still identifying on who is Samaria, who is Sodom, who is Jerusalem. This is what we are. But then when we start the lesson, then maybe in this Feast of Tabernacle, we can better able to identify where we are going, where we are coming from, so that we have a time of refreshing in the presence of the Lord on the Feast of Tabernacle, while Jeroboam is out with the congregation, taking the congregation outside with the wrong dates, taking the congregation not to keep the daily and susceptible to all the things. The daily was there to protect our lives. It was there to make sure we fear God, we communicate, we meet God at the door of the sanctuary. We meet, and this is there for us. This is going to purify the 144,000. We are going to start from there. When we start, we will enjoy this lesson. Samaria, Jerusalem, Sodom, you will know where you belong. Each one belongs somewhere there on the 3 sisters, but the covenant will be established on Jerusalem, but not on Samaria, not on Sodom. But we should know who they are. When you go there, ask yourself and evaluate yourself and say, am I Samaria? Or am I Jerusalem? Or am I Sodom? You know for sure where you are. God will make sure he establishes you according to the names he designed in Ezekiel chapter 16. May God be glorified. Have a good, prosperous Feast of Tabernacles.